Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the Horizon's Dream, watching the stars streak past the view screen as his ship traveled faster than light. He had made this journey dozens of times before, bringing supplies and new settlers to New Terra. The colony was home to over 2 million people now, families who had left Earth to build something new among the stars. Lisa Hayes, his communications officer, turned in her seat with a worried look on her face. She was young, only 26, but she had good instincts. Jake had learned to trust those instincts over the 3 years they had worked together. "Captain, I'm picking up some strange readings ahead," Lisa said. Her fingers moved across her console, trying to make sense of what her instruments were telling her. "There's a lot of interference coming from the new Terra system." Jake leaned forward. "What kind of interference?" "I'm not sure. It could be a solar storm, but the pattern doesn't match anything natural." Lisa's voice grew more concerned as she worked. "Sir, I'm not getting any response from the colony's traffic control. They should have contacted us by now." Danny Rivers, the ship's pilot, was already slowing their approach. He was an older man, gray-haired and steady under pressure. Jake had served with him for almost a decade. "Should I take us out of faster-than-light travel, Captain?" Jake nodded. "Do it. Take us in slow and keep the shields up." The Horizon's Dream dropped back into normal space at the edge of the new Terra system. What appeared on the view screen made Jake's blood run cold. The planet was burning. From orbit, he could see massive fires covering entire continents. The beautiful blue skies that New Terra was famous for were now hidden behind thick clouds of black smoke. Debris floated everywhere in space around the planet. Jake recognized pieces of the orbital defense platforms that were supposed to protect the colony. "Oh God," Lisa whispered. Her hands shook as she ran another scan. "Captain, I'm reading massive heat signatures all over the surface. The cities are gone. All of them." Jake felt like someone had punched him in the chest. He knew people down there, families, children. How long ago did this happen? Karen Webb, the ship's medical officer, was checking her own instruments. Her face had gone pale. "Based on the heat decay patterns, I'd say less than 6 hours ago. The fires are still active. Can you detect any survivors?" Jake asked, though he was afraid of the answer. "I'm picking up some life signs, but they're scattered and weak. Most are coming from underground areas." Karen looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "Captain, there were 2 million people down there." Jake forced himself to stay calm. His crew needed him to be strong right now. "Danny, take us into a lower orbit. We need to search for survivors." Lisa broadcast on all emergency frequencies. "Let anyone down there know we're here to help." Greg Palmer, the tactical officer, was studying his weapons console with a grim expression. "Captain, I'm analyzing the blast patterns on the surface. These weren't asteroids or accidents. This was a deliberate attack. By who?" Jake demanded. "The weapon signatures match Zephrani plasma cannons," Greg said quietly. "Captain, the Zephrani Dominion did this. Our supposed allies just wiped out New Terra." The bridge fell silent. The Zephrani were one of the founding members of the Galactic Council. They had welcomed humanity into the galactic community 30 years ago. They had treaties with Earth. They were supposed to be friends. "Are you certain?" Jake asked. Greg nodded. "Completely certain. I'm seeing their weapon signatures all over the planet. They hit military targets first, then the cities, then the farms. This was systematic destruction, Captain. They wanted to make sure nothing survived." Jake's hands gripped the armrests of his chair so hard his knuckles turned white. "Start recording everything. Every scan, every piece of evidence. We're going to need proof of what happened here." For the next several hours, the Horizon's Dream moved through orbit around New Terra, searching for survivors. They found small groups hiding in underground shelters, in caves, in the basements of destroyed buildings. Each rescue brought more heartbreaking stories. A woman named Claire Johnson had been shopping with her 2 daughters when the attack began. She had watched the orbital defense platforms explode above her head. Then the bombs started falling. She managed to get her girls into a storm shelter just before their entire neighborhood was turned into a glass crater. Her husband had been at work across the city. She knew he was dead. An engineer named Victor Hayes had been deep underground maintaining the colony's water systems. He felt the explosions through hundreds of feet of rock. When he finally made it to the surface, his entire world was gone. Everyone he knew was dead or missing. The most important survivor was Dr. Alan Pierce. He had been working in an underground research facility when the attack happened. The facility's computers had recorded everything. Alan had data files showing the Zephrani warships arriving in orbit, their communications as they targeted each city, and the methodical way they destroyed every settlement on the planet. Jake took the data files personally. He stood in the research facility's ruined control room and watched the recordings play. He saw Zephra warships, sleek and elegant, firing their weapons at defenseless cities. He heard their commanders discussing target priority. They showed no hesitation, no mercy, no regret. They killed 2 million humans like they were stepping on insects. Why? Jake asked Alan. Why would they do this? Alan shook his head. He looked like he had aged 20 years in the last few hours. I don't know. We weren't a threat to anyone. We were just farmers and teachers and families trying to build a home. Jake helped Alan aboard the Horizon's Dream, along with the other survivors they had found. In total, they rescued 347 people. Out of 2 million, only 347 had survived. As they prepared to leave orbit, Greg reported multiple ships approaching on faster-than-light sensors.
Captain, we have incoming.
The signatures match Zephra warships. How many? Jake asked. At least a dozen, maybe more. They'll be here in less than 5 minutes. Jake made his decision instantly. Danny, get us out of here. Maximum speed back to Earth. Lisa, send everything we've recorded on every possible channel. Broadcast it to Earth, to every human colony, to everyone. The whole galaxy needs to know what happened here. The Horizon's Dream jumped to faster-than-light travel, just as the Zephra fleet arrived. Jake watched New Terra disappear from his view screen, knowing he would never forget what he had seen there. The journey home took 3 days. Jake spent most of that time with the survivors. He walked through the cargo bays that had been converted into emergency shelters. He listened to their stories. He recorded their testimonies. He saw children who would never see their parents again, and parents who had lost everything they had spent their lives building. A little girl named Sophie, only 7 years old, asked him when she could go home. Jake had to tell her that her home was gone. He had to watch her face as she tried to understand that everyone and everything she had known was destroyed. By the time they reached Earth, Jake felt like a different person. The man who had left Earth a week ago believed in the Galactic Council, in peace among the stars, in a future where humanity could live alongside other species as equals. That man was dead, killed along with 2 million others at New Terra. When the Horizon's Dream entered Earth orbit, Jake saw something he had never seen before. Warships, hundreds of them moving into formation around the planet. Earth's space stations were covered with new weapons platforms. Military shuttles were everywhere, moving troops and supplies. Lisa looked up from her console. Captain, I'm receiving a message from Earth Defense Command. They're saying the entire planet is mobilizing for war. Jake wasn't surprised. The evidence from New Terra had reached Earth before they did. The recordings of Zephra warships killing millions of innocent people had been seen by everyone. Humanity knew it had been betrayed. President Helen Brooks appeared on every screen across Earth, her face hard with barely controlled anger. She spoke about justice and accountability. She said humanity would seek answers through proper channels first. But Jake could see the truth in her eyes. She was preparing for war, Jake understood. He felt it too. The rage that burned in his chest like a sun-going supernova. The need for justice, for revenge, for making sure that what happened to New Terra would never happen again. The galaxy had tried to destroy humanity. It had failed. Now humanity would show the galaxy what happened when you attacked innocent people without mercy. The survivors of New Terra would have their justice. Jake Morrison would make sure of it no matter what it took. Ambassador Charles Griffin walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers with his head held high. He had been humanity's representative to the Council for 7 years. In that time, he had believed in what the Council stood for: peace between species, cooperation across the stars, a future where everyone could prosper together. Today, he would learn that everything he believed was a lie. The Council chamber was enormous, easily the size of 10 football fields. Its walls displayed the symbols of 47 different species, all members of the galactic community. The ceiling showed a projection of the galaxy itself, slowly rotating above their heads. It was designed to make everyone who entered feel small and remind them that they were part of something greater than themselves. Charles had always found it inspiring. Now it just felt cold. He took his position at the human delegation's platform, a floating disc that gave him a view of the entire chamber. Around him, Representatives from dozens of species waited in their own platforms. Some looked curious. Others looked uncomfortable. A few looked hostile. At the center of the chamber, on the highest platform, sat Council Leader Thernax. He was ancient, even by the standards of his long-lived species. He had guided the Galactic Council for over 300 years. Charles had always respected him, had always believed Thernax was wise and fair. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Charles Griffin of humanity," Thernax announced, his voice amplified to fill the entire chamber. Charles activated his presentation. Images appeared on every screen in the chamber, visible to all 47 council members. Video from New Terra showed Zephrani warships in orbit above the colony. He showed the bombs falling, the cities burning, the systematic destruction of every human settlement on the planet. 3 weeks ago, the Zephrani Dominion attacked New Terra without warning or provocation. Charles began. His voice was steady, but anger burned beneath every word. 2 million human civilians were killed. Men, women, and children who had done nothing wrong. They were farmers, teachers, engineers, and families. They were innocent. He showed more evidence. Weapon signature analysis that proved beyond any doubt the attacks came from Zephrani ships. Survivor testimonies from people who watched their loved ones die. Data logs from the colony system showing there had been no warning, no chance to evacuate, no mercy. "Under council law, this is genocide," Charles said. "The deliberate destruction of a civilian population. I am here to demand justice. The Zephrani Dominion must be held accountable for this crime." The chamber was silent when he finished. Charles waited, hoping to see shock on the faces around him, hoping to see outrage, hoping to see anything that suggested the other species cared about what had happened. Instead, High Commander Vexral of the Zephrani Dominion rose from his platform. He was tall and elegant like all his species. His skin shimmered with a faint blue glow. He looked completely calm, as if Charles had just accused him of a parking violation instead of mass murder. "The human ambassador fails to mention important context," Vexral said smoothly. "We had intelligence indicating that humanity was developing prohibited weapons on New Terra, weapons that violate the technology restriction, accords that all younger species must follow." Charles felt ice forming in his stomach. That's a lie. New Terra was a farming colony. There were no weapons, Vexral smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "I have evidence to the contrary." He activated his own presentation. Falsified reports appeared on the screens. Doctored images showing military facilities that never existed. Fake intelligence briefings claiming humanity was building planet-destroying weapons. Charles knew immediately that the evidence was manufactured. Anyone who looked closely would see the inconsistencies, the impossible data, the obvious lies. But as he looked around the chamber, he saw something that terrified him. No one was looking closely. No one wanted to look closely. The representative from the Korthari hegemony spoke next. "Humanity has been expanding very aggressively in recent years. They have established colonies at an unprecedented rate. This rapid growth is concerning. Humanity's military buildup has been substantial," added the delegate from the Silicate Collective. "They have been constructing warships and weapons platforms throughout their space. Their intentions are unclear." One after another, council members spoke. Each one found reasons to doubt humanity. Each one suggested that maybe the Zephrani had been justified. Each one acted as if the murder of 2 million innocent people was somehow acceptable. Charles felt like he was drowning. This wasn't a trial. It wasn't even a real investigation. This was theater, a performance designed to reach a conclusion that had already been decided. "You all knew?" he said quietly, then louder, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You all knew this was going to happen. This was coordinated. The Zephrani didn't act alone. You approved this." Thernax looked at him with eyes that seemed infinitely sad and infinitely cold at the same time. "Ambassador Griffin, you must understand. The galaxy has a certain order. That order has maintained peace for thousands of years. Younger species like humanity must learn their place within that order." "Our place?" Charles felt rage building inside him. "You mean our place is to be controlled? To be kept weak? To accept whatever you do to us without fighting back?" "You make it sound cruel," said the delegate from the avian ascendancy, "but it is necessary. Species that advance too quickly, that refuse to accept guidance from their elders, become dangerous. The Council exists to prevent wars, not enable them." Charles understood now. The technology restriction accords, the trade limitations, The regulations that kept human colonies small and scattered, it was all designed to keep humanity from becoming strong enough to challenge the established powers. The Council wasn't a partnership of equals. It was a hierarchy, and humanity was at the bottom. New Terra wasn't just an attack on one colony. It was a test. The Council wanted to see if they could kill millions of humans and face no consequences. They wanted to see if humanity would submit or resist. They wanted to break humanity's spirit before humans became too strong to control. "I have one final request," Charles said. "Under Council law, I have the right to demand a formal investigation. I demand that independent observers examine the evidence and determine the truth about New Terra." Thurnax was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his words ended any hope Charles still held. "The Council has reviewed the evidence presented by both sides. We find that the Zephrani Dominion's actions, while regrettable, were justified given the potential threat. The investigation into New Terra is suspended indefinitely. Furthermore, humanity is forbidden from taking any retaliatory action against the Zephrani Dominion. Any such action will result in complete embargo and expulsion from Council protection." The words hung in the air like poison. Charles looked around the chamber one last time. He saw species that had welcomed humanity with smiles while planning their subjugation. He saw Council members who spoke of peace while endorsing genocide. He saw a system built on keeping the strong powerful and the weak helpless. He reached up and unpinned the ambassador's insignia from his uniform. The small piece of metal had meant everything to him once. It represented humanity's place among the stars, proof that humans belonged in the galactic community. Now it was just a reminder of betrayal. Charles placed the insignia on his platform and pushed it away. It floated there, catching the light from the galaxy projection above. "You have made a mistake," he said to the Council. "The greatest mistake in galactic history. Humanity came to you in peace. We wanted to be your partners, your friends, your equals. We would have given anything for that future." He looked directly at Thurnax. "You chose to answer peace with genocide. You chose to meet friendship with betrayal. You thought you could crush us, control us, teach us our place. You were wrong." Charles turned to leave, but he stopped at the doorway. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the vast chamber. "Humanity sought peace. Since you offer only submission or death, we choose a third option. We choose vengeance. And when we're done, your precious order will be ashes." He walked out of the Galactic Council chambers and never looked back. Outside, his security chief Pete Dawson was waiting with an escort of human Marines. Pete had served in Earth's military for 20 years before becoming a diplomatic security officer. He was a practical man who always planned for the worst. "How did it go?" Pete asked, though the expression on Charles's face probably told him everything. "Exactly as badly as we feared," Charles said. He pulled out his secure communicator and checked the encrypted messages from Earth. What he saw made him smile for the first time in weeks. "Is our ship ready to leave?" "Standing by in orbit. We can be gone in 10 minutes. Pete handed him a datapad. "You need to see this. These messages came in while you were inside." Charles read the reports as they walked to the landing pad. The military mobilization he had seen beginning before he left Earth was now complete. Hundreds of warships were ready for deployment. Weapon systems that had been developed in secret for years were now online. Training programs that had prepared millions of soldiers for a war everyone hoped would never come were now bearing fruit. Humanity hadn't been idle during their years in the Council. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching through the view screen as her fleet assembled in the space beyond Mars. 200 warships moved into formation with practiced precision. Destroyers, cruisers, battleships, and carriers arranged themselves into attack groups. Their hulls were dark gray, angular, and heavily armored. They looked nothing like the elegant ships of the Council races. They looked like what they were: weapons built for war. Kate had spent 15 years preparing for this moment. She had hoped it would never come. When humanity joined the Galactic Council, she had believed that maybe humans could finally put war behind them. Maybe they could focus on exploring and building instead of fighting. New Terra had ended that dream. Commander Ryan Bell approached from the engineering station. He was her chief engineer, a genius who could repair or modify anything with engines. He saluted quickly. "Admiral, all ships report ready. The new weapon systems are online and tested. We're ready to move on your order." Kate nodded. Thank you, Ryan. Are you confident the systems will work as designed? Ryan smiled grimly. Admiral, the Council races have been using the same technology for thousands of years. They've refined it, made it efficient, but they haven't innovated. We've had to innovate. Our systems are different from theirs, and that's going to be our advantage. Kate understood what he meant. The technology restriction accords had forbidden humanity from copying Council weapons technology. So human engineers had found different solutions. Railguns that used magnetic acceleration to fire solid projectiles at incredible speeds. Missile systems with basic artificial intelligence that could adapt to enemy defenses. Electronic warfare capabilities designed to exploit the networked nature of Council military systems. What about the shields? Kate asked. Non-existent, Ryan said. We couldn't match the energy efficiency of Council shield technology, and the Accords forbade us from trying. So instead we focused on armor, layered plates, ablative coatings, and redundant systems. Our ships can take hits that would cripple Council vessels. Kate walked to the tactical display showing her entire fleet. Each ship was represented by a small icon, color-coded by type and readiness status. Every icon glowed green. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Angela Price, was studying intelligence reports at her station. Angela was young but sharp. She had been teaching military history at the academy before the war started. Now her knowledge of historical battles was about to be put to practical use. Admiral, I've finished analyzing Council battle tactics from the last 3 centuries, Angela said. They follow very predictable patterns. Energy weapons at long range, shield-to-shield combat at medium range, and they almost never fight to complete destruction. Most battles end with negotiated surrenders once one side is clearly losing. They fight with rules, Kate said. Honor and tradition. Exactly. They expect their enemies to fight the same way. Angela looked up from her reports. We won't be following their rules. Kate had studied Earth's military history extensively. She knew about the world wars that nearly destroyed human civilization. She knew about ancient conflicts, medieval battles, and every brutal lesson humanity learned about warfare over thousands of years. Those lessons had been terrible, but they had taught humanity something the Council races had forgotten. War was about winning, not about fighting honorably. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Gary Foster, received an incoming message. Admiral, Captain Noah Sanders reports that his carrier group is in position. All fighter squadrons are ready for deployment. Kate pulled up the image of Noah Sanders on her screen. He commanded 6 carriers, each loaded with dozens of fighters and bombers. Noah was a veteran pilot himself, someone who understood both the strategic and tactical aspects of space combat. Noah, are your pilots ready? Kate asked. Noah grinned. He was always confident, sometimes too confident, but he backed it up with skill. Admiral, my pilots have been training in simulators for months. They've run thousands of combat scenarios. They know every trick, every maneuver, and every way to exploit Council weaknesses. They're ready to make some noise. Kate cut the communication and took a deep breath. In a few minutes, she would give the order that would start the first human war against an alien species. 200 ships would jump into the Zephrani home system. They would face a fleet 3 times their size, defending their home world, with every advantage of position and preparation. On paper, humanity should lose. But Kate knew something the Zephrani didn't. Humanity wasn't just bringing ships to this fight. They were bringing rage. They were bringing the memory of 2 million innocent people murdered without mercy. They were bringing every hard lesson learned from Earth's bloody history. Director Sam Hughes appeared on her command screen. Sam ran Earth's intelligence service, and his network of agents and analysts had been working non-stop since New Terra. He looked exhausted but determined. Admiral, I have final intelligence updates for you, Sam said. The Zephrani have positioned their main fleet in orbit around their homeworld. They're confident, Kate. They think this will be over quickly. Troop dispositions? Kate asked. Heavy concentration around their military command stations. They expect you to try orbital bombardment, so they're ready to counter that. They're not expecting boarding actions. Sam paused. Kate, the whole galaxy is watching. Every Council species has ships observing from a distance. They want to see if humanity can actually fight back or if the Zephrani will crush you. Then let's give them a show, Kate said. She closed the communication and looked around her bridge. Her crew were all veterans, people she had trained with and trusted completely. They knew what was at stake. They knew they might not come home from this battle. Attention all ships, Kate broadcast on the fleet channel. This is Admiral Sullivan. In a few minutes, we jump to the Zephra home system. We're going there for one reason: justice. 2 million of our people were murdered. The Galactic Council refused to act. So we will act. We will show the Zephra and everyone watching that humanity will not be intimidated. We will not be controlled. We will not surrender. For New Terra. The response came back from 200 ships from thousands of voices. For New Terra. Kate gave the order. All ships jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark. Space twisted around the fleet. For a moment, Kate felt the strange sensation of faster-than-light travel, like falling and flying at the same time. Then the retribution dropped back into normal space, and the Zephra home system appeared on the view screen. The planet Zephra Prime hung before them, a beautiful world of blue oceans and green continents. Orbital stations surrounded it like a string of pearls. Beyond those stations, 300 Zephra warships were moving into formation. Angela read her tactical display. Admiral, the Zephra fleet is larger than expected. I count 312 ships. They have a significant numerical advantage. Numbers aren't everything, Kate said. She opened a channel to the Zephra fleet on all frequencies. This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Earth Defense Force. We are here to demand justice for the massacre at New Terra. The Zephra Dominion committed genocide against our people. We demand that those responsible be turned over for trial. We demand that the Zephra government acknowledge this crime and submit to investigation. You have 1 hour to respond. The reply came quickly. High Commander Vexrel himself appeared on the screen. He was the same Zephra who had justified the New Terra massacre to the Galactic Council. Kate had watched recordings of his testimony, had listened to him call the murder of millions regrettable but necessary. She hated him more than she thought possible. Admiral Sullivan, Vexrel said, with what looked like amusement. You are outnumbered and outgunned. You face the military might of a civilization that has been traveling the stars for 3,000 years. Surrender now and we may show mercy. Continue this foolishness and we will destroy you. Kate smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. We gave you 1 hour. You've chosen to refuse. That's your mistake. She cut the communication and turned to her weapons officer. All ships attack formation. Prepare to engage. The Zephra fleet moved forward, elegant ships gliding through space in perfect formation. They opened fire at long range, sending brilliant streams of plasma toward the human fleet. Brace for impact, Kate ordered. The plasma bolts hit the Retribution's hull, and the ship shook from the impact, but the armor held. The layered plating absorbed most of the energy, and the ablative coating burned away the rest. Damage reports came in showing minor hull damage, nothing critical. The Zephra looked confused. Their weapons should have penetrated the human shields, except humans didn't have shields. They had something better. Armor designed specifically to counter energy weapons. All ships return fire, Kate commanded. The human fleet opened up with their railguns. Tungsten rods, each weighing several tons, accelerated to a fraction of light speed and crossed the distance to the Zephra fleet in seconds. The Zephra shields, designed to dissipate energy weapons, did nothing against solid projectiles moving that fast. The first railgun round hit a Zephra cruiser amidships. The ship literally broke in half, the kinetic energy transferring through its entire structure. More rounds followed, each one finding a target. The human fleet pursued the scattered Zephra ships toward the orbital defense platforms surrounding Zephra Prime. High Commander Vexrel had retreated to the largest platform, a massive station bristling with heavy weapons. He believed the platforms would save him. He believed their firepower would turn the tide of battle. He was wrong about everything. Admiral Kate Sullivan watched her tactical display as the Zephra survivors clustered around the defense platforms like children hiding behind their parents. The platforms were impressive structures, each one capable of destroying a battleship with a single shot. Under normal circumstances, attacking them would be suicide. But these weren't normal circumstances, and humanity didn't fight normal battles. Angela, analysis of those platforms, Kate ordered. Lieutenant Commander Angela Price studied her sensors. They're powerful, Admiral. Each platform has multiple plasma cannon batteries, missile launchers, and advanced targeting systems. They're designed to defend against fleet attacks, but they're stationary targets and their shields are optimized against energy weapons. Kate smiled. Just like their ships were. Ryan, can our railguns punch through their shields? Commander Ryan Bell checked his calculations. Absolutely, Admiral. Those shields won't stop kinetic penetrators any better than the ships did. The platforms are tougher, more armor behind the shields, but we can crack them. Then let's crack them, Kate said. She opened a channel to Captain Noah Sanders. Noah, I need your carriers to launch a full strike. Fighters and bombers, everything you've got. Target those platforms. Noah's face appeared on her screen and he was grinning. Admiral, my pilots have been waiting for this. We'll put on a show. The 6 human carriers moved into position, and their launch bays opened like the mouths of hungry beasts. Fighters poured out in waves, hundreds of them, filling space with tiny, fast-moving targets. Behind them came the bombers, larger craft loaded with heavy missiles designed to crack fortified targets. Lieutenant Ashley Ford led the first wave. She had already destroyed 3 Zephrani ships during the initial battle, and her blood was singing with adrenaline. This was what she had trained for, what every simulator run and practice mission had prepared her for. Gold Squadron, form up on me, she broadcast to her wing. We're going to hit those platforms hard and fast. Remember your training. Speed is life. Stay moving and trust your instruments. The fighters accelerated toward the defense platforms. The platforms opened fire, sending streams of plasma into space. The energy bolts lit up the darkness like fireworks, beautiful and deadly. Ashley's fighter twisted and dove, her hands moving across the controls with practiced ease. She had flown through simulated attacks like this hundreds of times. She knew exactly when to turn, when to dive, when to trust her ship's computer to dodge what she couldn't see. Behind her, the bombers released their missiles. Each bomber carried 12 heavy missiles, and each missile had its own basic artificial intelligence. The missiles scattered as they flew, making themselves harder to target. They analyzed the platform defenses, looking for weak points, calculating the best attack angles. The Zephrani defenders tried to shoot down the missiles, but there were too many. Explosions blossomed across the nearest platform's shields. The shields held for a moment, flickering under the assault, then collapsed. The next wave of missiles hit bare armor. Direct hit on Platform 1, Angela reported from the Retribution. Structural damage confirmed. They're venting atmosphere. Kate watched the battle unfold like a master conductor watching an orchestra. Every element of her fleet worked together perfectly. The fighters kept the platform defenses busy. The bombers struck at weak points, and behind them all, the battleships and cruisers moved into railgun range. All ships target Platform 1, Kate ordered. Concentrated fire. 20 battleships fired simultaneously. 20 tungsten rods, each moving at tremendous speed, hit the damaged platform within seconds of each other. The platform's armor crumpled. Secondary explosions rippled through its structure. Then the entire platform broke apart, pieces tumbling away into space. The Zephrani ships hiding near the platform scattered in panic. Some tried to run deeper into the system. Others attempted to land on Zephra Prime itself. A few brave commanders tried to fight back, but they were overwhelmed by the human assault. Platform 2 is targeting us, Ryan warned. Big plasma cannon charging up. Evasive maneuvers, Kate said calmly. Launch countermeasures. The Retribution turned hard, its engines flaring bright. Small drones launched from its hull, each one broadcasting false sensor signatures. The platform's targeting computer saw 10 ships where only one existed. When the massive plasma cannon fired, its shot missed by hundreds of kilometers. Before the platform could recharge, Captain Noah Sanders brought his carriers in close. Marine assault shuttles launched from their bays, small armored craft designed to carry soldiers directly into combat. The shuttles had one mission: board the platforms and take them from the inside. Sergeant Ben Crawford sat in the lead shuttle with 40 Marines under his command. He was a veteran of Earth's military, a man who had seen combat in the last conflicts before global unification. He knew how to fight in confined spaces, how to lead troops in hostile environments, and how to win when the odds were against him. Listen up, he told his Marines over the squad channel. These platforms aren't designed to repel borders. The Zephrani don't fight like that. They think war is ships shooting at each other from a distance. We're going to teach them about close combat. The shuttle shook as enemy fire passed nearby. The pilot, a young woman named Kelly Price, kept them moving and dodging. She was terrified, but her hands were steady on the controls. She brought them right up to Platform 2's hull next to a maintenance airlock. Breach charges ready, Ben said. 2 Marines placed explosive charges on the airlock door. Everyone stepped back. Fire in the hole. The charges exploded, blowing the door inward. Atmosphere rushed out of the hole, but the Marines were ready. They wore sealed armor with their own air supplies. They pushed through the breach into the platform's interior. The Zephrani defenders inside weren't prepared for this. They carried sidearms meant for ceremonial purposes, not combat rifles designed to kill. They wore light-duty uniforms, not armored combat suits. When Ben and his Marines came through that door, the Zephrani defenders didn't stand a chance. The fight through the platform was short and brutal. Ben led his team toward the command center, clearing rooms as they went. The Zephrani tried to resist, but human Marines were trained for this. They used grenades to clear fortified positions, breaching charges to open sealed doors, and overwhelming firepower to push through any resistance. Within 20 minutes, Ben's team reached the command center. Inside, Zephrani officers were trying to coordinate the defense of their platform. They looked up in shock when the door exploded inward and human Marines poured through. "Secure the room," Ben ordered. His Marines moved with practiced efficiency, covering every angle, making sure no threats remained. Ben walked to the main control console and found what he was looking for: the platform's master controls. "Admiral Sullivan, this is Sergeant Crawford," he reported. "Platform 2 is secure. We have control of all systems." Kate's voice came back immediately. "Excellent work, Sergeant. Shut down the weapons and open the docking bays. We're sending more troops to hold that position." Ben did as ordered, watching the control screens as the platform's weapons powered down. Through the viewports, he could see the battle continuing around the other platforms. Human ships moved with purpose and precision, while Zephrani vessels scattered in confusion. This was what the Council races didn't understand about humanity. Humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years. They had refined combat to a terrible science. They knew about combined arms tactics, about using every available advantage, about winning at any cost. The battle for the orbital platforms continued for 2 more hours. One by one, the massive structures either surrendered, were captured, or were destroyed. The Zephrani fleet that had once numbered over 300 ships was reduced to scattered survivors, fleeing into deep space. On the Retribution's bridge, Kate watched the last platform surrender. High Commander Vexrel himself transmitted the surrender message, his voice full of disbelief. He had thought the battle would be easy. He had expected the humans to follow Council rules of engagement, to fight honorably, to give up when casualties mounted. Instead, humanity fought to win. Kate could destroy Zephra Prime now. She could bombard the planet from orbit, could turn their cities into craters, could kill billions just as the Zephrani killed millions at New Terra. The thought was tempting. Justice demanded blood for blood, but Kate wasn't like High Commander Vexrol. She didn't kill civilians. She didn't murder innocents. That was what made humanity different from the Zephrani, from the Council, from all the species that thought strength meant cruelty. "Open a channel to Zephra Prime," Kate ordered. "All frequencies. I want everyone to hear this." When the channel opened, Kate chose her words carefully. "This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Earth Defense Force. The Zephrani military has been defeated. Your orbital defenses are captured or destroyed. Your fleet is scattered. We could destroy your planet right now." 3 months had passed since the Battle of Zephra Prime, and the galaxy was still reeling from the shock. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session, gathering in the massive chamber that had witnessed thousands of years of debates and decisions. But today felt different. The air was thick with tension. The confident voices that usually filled the chamber were quieter, uncertain. Ambassador Charles Griffin walked through the great doors once again, but this time he wasn't alone and he wasn't powerless. Admiral Kate Sullivan walked beside him in her full military dress uniform, her medals catching the light. Behind them came Director Sam Hughes, whose intelligence network had been busy gathering information about every Council species for the past 3 months. The screens around the chamber showed footage from human victories. The Battle of Zephra Prime played on repeat, showing Zephrani warships being destroyed by railgun fire. Images of captured orbital platforms. Video of human Marines fighting through enemy installations. The evidence was undeniable. Humanity had become a military power. Charles took his position at the human delegation's platform, but he didn't feel like a supplicant anymore. He felt like a prosecutor about to present evidence against criminals. Kate and Sam stood beside him, their presence a reminder that humanity now backed its words with force. Council leader Thernax looked older than he had 3 months ago. The ancient being who had guided the council for centuries seemed diminished somehow, as if the weight of recent events had finally caught up with him. The council recognizes Ambassador Charles Griffin, Thernax announced, his voice lacking its usual authority. Charles didn't waste time with pleasantries. 3 months ago, I stood in this chamber and pleaded for justice. I showed you evidence of genocide. I asked you to honor your own laws, and you refused. He gestured to the screens showing battle footage, so humanity took matters into our own hands. We defeated the Zephrani military. We captured their home system. We proved that we can defend ourselves. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some council members looked angry. Others looked afraid. A few of the smaller species looked hopeful, as if they were seeing possibilities they hadn't considered before. But the Battle of Zephra Prime was just the beginning. Charles continued. After we defeated the Zephrani, the Korthari hegemony tried to enforce the Council's embargo of humanity. They sent their fleet to blockade our trade routes. More footage appeared on the screens. Captain Noah Sanders and his carrier groups engaging Korthari warships. Human fighters dancing through enemy formations. Korthari ships retreating with heavy damage. The Korthari blockade lasted 6 days, Charles said. Then they withdrew. Our pilots were simply better trained, better equipped, and more determined. The Korthari learned what the Zephrani learned. Humanity doesn't fight the way you expect. Kate stepped forward. Her presence commanded attention even in this vast chamber. The council races have been fighting each other for millennia, but your conflicts are ritualized. You follow rules. You avoid civilian casualties. You negotiate before destroying enemies completely. These practices have made you soft. She gestured to the battle footage. Humanity spent 10,000 years fighting ourselves. We know about total war. We know about fighting for survival. We know what it takes to win when losing means extinction. The technology restriction accords were supposed to keep us weak, but all they did was force us to innovate. Sam Hughes pulled up new data on the screens. Charts showing human industrial capacity. Reports on new weapons development. Intelligence about human colonies spreading to new systems. The information painted a picture of a species that was growing stronger every day. The Silicate Collective tried economic warfare, Sam said. His voice was calm, professional, like he was presenting a business report instead of exposing galactic conspiracies. They refused to trade rare minerals with humanity, thinking we would be forced to negotiate on their terms. Instead, our engineers developed better extraction and processing techniques. We don't need the collective's resources anymore. We can get everything we need from our own systems. Charles watched the council members as this information was presented. He saw their certainty crumbling. They had believed they controlled the galaxy, that younger species would always remain dependent and weak. Humanity was proving them wrong. But the most important thing we discovered, Charles said, is what Director Hughes will now share with you. Sam activated a new presentation. Documents appeared on every screen in the chamber. Communications between council members, secret agreements, records of other species being suppressed or controlled, evidence of a system built not on cooperation, but on maintaining the power of a few ancient civilizations. For 3 months, my intelligence service has been analyzing every piece of information we could gather about the council, Sam said. What we found was disturbing. The technology restriction accords aren't about preventing war. They're about keeping younger species from challenging the established powers. The trade regulations aren't about fair commerce. They're about economic control. The council isn't a partnership. It's a hierarchy designed to keep certain species on top and everyone else below. More evidence appeared, records showing how the council had used similar tactics against other species in the past. Civilizations that were kept small and weak, technologies that were suppressed, species that tried to grow beyond their assigned role and faced consequences. New Terra wasn't an isolated incident, Charles said, his voice hard. It was standard procedure. The Zephrani attacked us because the council tacitly approved. You all wanted to see if humanity would submit or resist. You wanted to break our spirit before we became strong enough to challenge your authority. A delegate from the Korthari hegemony stood up. This is outrageous. The council has maintained peace for thousands of years. We have prevented countless wars. You've prevented wars by crushing anyone who might fight them, Kate shot back. You call it peace. We call it tyranny. The chamber erupted in arguments. Council members shouted at each other, at the humans, at anyone who would listen. The unity that had defined the Galactic Council for millennia was shattering before everyone's eyes. Thernax tried to restore order, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Charles watched the ancient leader struggle and felt no sympathy. This was what happened when you built a system on lies and control. Eventually, someone exposed the truth and the whole structure collapsed. A small voice cut through the noise. The delegate from the Dalari, a species that had been restricted to a tiny territory for generations, stood up. His name was Krell, and Charles had met him before. He was young and idealistic, qualities that Charles had once shared. "The humans are right," Krell said. His voice was quiet, but somehow it carried through the chamber. "My people have been asking for permission to expand for 200 years. We've been denied every time. We're told our territory is sufficient. That expansion would destabilize the region. But the real reason is that you don't want us to grow strong enough to challenge you." Other small species began to speak up. The Avari, who had advanced technology but were forbidden from developing weapons. The Tresh, whose colonies were limited by council decree. The Mindar, whose economy was controlled by council trade regulations. One by one, species that had been silent for generations found their voices. Charles realized something important was happening. Humanity's defiance hadn't just challenged the Council's military power. It had shown other species that resistance was possible. The smaller civilizations were seeing a path to freedom. Thernax finally managed to quiet the chamber. The ancient leader looked at Charles with eyes that held sadness and resignation. "What do you want, Ambassador Griffin?" Charles had prepared for this moment. "Humanity demands 4 things. First, complete reparations for New Terra. Every family that lost members will be compensated. The Zephrani Dominion will pay for the rebuilding of the colony. Second, the technology restriction accords are dissolved immediately. Every species has the right to develop whatever technology they choose. No more artificial limits on advancement. Third, equal representation in council affairs for all species, regardless of age or power. No more founding members with special privileges. Every voice counts equally. Fourth, independent investigation of all past conflicts to determine if other species have suffered injustices like New Terra. Full transparency and accountability." The chamber was silent. Charles could see council members calculating, weighing their options. They could refuse, but refusal meant war, a war they now knew they might lose. "And if the council refuses these demands?" Thernax asked. Kate stepped forward again. "Then humanity will systematically dismantle council military power until you agree to reform. We won't attack civilians, we won't commit genocide, but we will destroy every warship, every defense platform, and every military installation that threatens human interests or oppresses other species." She pulled up images of new human ships under construction, larger fleets being assembled, weapon systems even more advanced than what they used at Zephra Prime. "We're getting stronger every day. The longer you wait, the worse your position becomes." Sam added his own threat. "And we're not working alone anymore. Several smaller species have been in contact with us.